Welcome back to Wake Up America. I'm Alex Kramer. It's now time to give you a quick look at today's business headlines. And for help with that, let's bring in the Executive Vice President of the Commonwealth Foundation and Fellow at Independent Women's Forum, Jennifer Stefano, and Business and Markets Analyst and Newsmax contributor, Seth Denson. Happy Monday.
Hey, happy Monday.
All right, guys, the market's finishing in the red on Friday. Futures are down this morning ahead of the opening bell. Seth, it is Monday, so what can investors expect this week?
You know, my gut tells me investors can expect a lot of the same for the remainder of the week. A lot of that will hinge on what we get out of these updated earnings reports. A lot of big tech earnings, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, they're all reporting earnings this week. If that's good, then we may see some light for the index funds. And if that happens, it could be a positive week. But I think investors were showing us maybe what they expected this week in the big sell-off on Friday. So I'm not very bullish.
Jennifer, I want to follow up. Why are futures so down this morning?
Yeah, well, I think the Fed got more hawkish. They said that there is absolutely a half of basis point increase. That is bigger than the previous one, and I think that is going to be a reality for America very soon. They really do need to get some of this money off the street. And remember that there's a lot of foreign investment now coming in to America. The dollar is stronger than I think the Fed expected it to be. So I think just that alone is creating an enormous amount of volatility. And as Seth said, everybody's waiting for the 4 big tech company earnings to drop this week.
All right, guys, the big news from the markets. Once again, we got Elon Musk and Twitter. So a meeting is actually set between Musk and the Twitter boards for Sunday. Twitter's board saying they are, quote, committed to conducting a careful, comprehensive, and deliberate review. So, Seth, do you think an Elon Twitter takeover is really in the near future?
You know, I think it could be. Here's the reality. The board had to sit back and recognize that they could be in violation of their fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders if they don't entertain these offers. And then Elon started doing what Elon does really well, using the message board to start playing chess, to show what his moves might be and let them know he isn't playing checkers ahead here. He's thinking 5 moves ahead. The board has to wake up to that. I think we could very well see an Elon takeover.
It's going to be interesting to see. All right, well, European Union officials are asking citizens to now work from home when possible. Now, that's in an effort to reduce gas consumption and help cut reliance on Russian oil. Jennifer, is this an answer to end Russia's stronghold on European energy markets?
The answer to ending Russian stronghold on the energy markets is for countries like the United States to actually produce and allow for the development of our liquid natural gas to be able to export around the world. And it really is such a shame. I mean, look, maybe it'll have some impact, but it won't have the impact that is absolutely necessary because it's really just a shell game now, right? So the Russians will sell to somebody else while the Americans and the British and Europe take it from the Saudis or from Iran or Iraq. Okay, this is not the answer. The answer is for places like the United States, a free democratic country, to better produce and develop our oil and natural reserves. This could solve a lot of the problems.
Yeah, well, speaking of the United States, Seth, you're an oil country down in Texas. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Jennifer said. The challenge that Europe has, though, is that the United States is way over here and they're way over there. And Russia knows that. And that's a big chunk of why they went after Ukraine. Ukraine has a lot of mineral deposit capabilities, a lot of oil capabilities. And there was great fear from Russia that if Ukraine was entered into the EU or even into NATO, that they could start to move that oil and it become a competitor. So I agree we need to ramp up oil production here in the United States and become a net exporter, not a net importer. That would be good for the world to be less reliant on places like Russia, Saudi Arabia, and anywhere in the Middle East.
How about this? Now, this story really caught my attention. All right, so your next flight may actually not be taking off. Multiple airlines are now offering bus rides for short flights rather than using planes due to pilot shortages. Jennifer, will travelers be willing to take buses instead of planes at this point?
Yeah, I think Americans are going to have a fit about this, especially for people living in the smaller areas that aren't major hubs, major metropolitan areas. So, you know, if you're going to land in Denver and you want to get to Colorado Springs, all of a sudden they're putting you on a charter bus. It's taking extra time. This is not going to work out well for those that, like I do, like Seth does, business commuters, that we just need to move quickly. We need the puddle jumpers, as they're called. I think this is not going to go down well.
Yeah, Seth, I know you travel a lot. Are you willing to hop on a bus instead of a plane?
Only if I have to. Listen, I mean, that's and that's the basis of it. If there was no other option, sure, I would do that. But to Jennifer's point, these airline companies have a big problem ahead of them because for a lot of for during the pandemic, they did not treat their pilots well. What did their pilots do? Well, you're seeing this emergence of new business travel through places like NetJet and Wheels Up and these little charter for hires. And that's a better life for these pilots, and for business travelers are starting to look a lot more at this. And business travelers is where airlines really make their money.
Let's talk about Exxon. They are now banning LGBTQ and Black Lives Matter flags from being flown on their company property. Jennifer, do you believe this is a good move for Exxon to avoid being political and just completely stick to selling gas?
So I want to clarify what Exxon did. They did not specifically ban the gay pride flag or the BLM flag. What they banned were just generally flags that are outside of the traditional, say, American flag or the corporate company flag that is being flown. They did not target these groups or individuals. What these groups are doing is making themselves unnecessary victims. You're no more able to fly a Republican flag than you are a BLM flag now. And that makes sense. Exxon doesn't want to become a political entity. They know there are people on all sides of the divide. So the best answer here is you can fly flags from what they call their resource group, where they do actually have a gay pride flag, but you cannot fly the traditional, now political flags that they're talking about. I think this is a wise move, and I think the hysteria by the LGBTQ community that this is somehow targeting them specifically is wrong and unfair, and the mainstream media is not reporting it correctly.
Yeah, well, Jennifer, thank you so much for clarifying. Yeah, that's extremely important. Finally, I've got a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. The dress worn by Judy Garland as Dorothy in the 1939 Wizard of Oz is going up for auction. Now, the dress was actually lost for many years before being discovered in a shoebox at the Catholic University of America in D.C. Appraisals are going as high as $1.2 million. Seth, there's no place like home, but is this a good buy?
Hey, listen, I'm following the yellow brick road. I represent the Lollipop Guild, but I am not probably going to shell out that much money. Now, I will say this. A few years ago, I lost a bet, and in losing that bet, I had to go to a Halloween party dressed as Dorothy while my wife was the Scarecrow. Now, one of these days, those pictures will surface, and I'm sure Lauren is going to post them all over Newsmax for everybody to see. But until then, no, I'm avoiding the dress. I've worn it once. I won't wear it again.
All right, so Seth, you've already worn the dress, but Jennifer, what are your thoughts on this?
Number one, I need photographic evidence immediately. Seth, produce.
Nobody wants to see that, Jen. Nobody wants to see it.
I need to see. I'll send out when I was Dorothy. But number two, can you believe that this was just thrown in a box? It was donated to Catholic University, and the person in the 1970s who got it just sort of threw it in a box and left it to the side. All those years it sat there, could have been thrown out. I always find it remarkable how people either don't value those type of things, which I think in the 70s they would have at that point, or just simply forget about these items. Again, you know my dream to clean out my closet and find multi-millions of dollars worth of paintings and memorabilia. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, Jennifer, we've talked about that before. That's definitely the dream. Seth Denson, Jennifer Stefano, thank you for joining us this morning. A pleasure as always.
Thank you.